You're listening to Trek FM.
Want to join in the conversation and share your thoughts on this episode? Join the Babel Conference, our listeners' discussion group on Facebook. Just type BABEL into the Facebook search field, and we'll look forward to seeing you there.
This is Steve Sansweet of Rancho Obi-Wan, and you're listening to the 602 Club.
Welcome to the 602 Club, Trek FM's local watering hole. I am just one of the hosts here, Matthew Rushing, and with me is she's almost every single week, fresh off of Dragon Con, the Queen of Dragons herself, Christy Morris.
I believe it's the Mother of Dragons, but I'll take Queen too.
I'm so sorry. I apologize. I didn't know if Daenerys would get jealous if I called you the Mother of Dragons, so...
okay. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was great. A lot of Star Wars content coming out of that. We had some funny things happen with a cardboard cutout of a FedEx man. I highly suggest going to Dragon Con if you get the chance.
Yeah, it's really fun. I was sad to miss it this year. With as busy as this year was, it just wasn't in the cards to go. So, but we're so excited to be here because we're going to be continuing talking about the Cloverfield series, and we're going to hit up 10 Cloverfield Lane. But before we dive into the movie, quick reminder, of course, that you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. Honestly, pretty much anywhere you get your podcasts, type in the 602 Club, and you'll find it. Subscribe in any of those places. If you're on Apple Podcasts or iTunes, hit us up with a star rating review, too. Let people know what you think of the show, and that'll help us, too, grow. The more reviews we have, the easier it is for people to find us in iTunes, and that's still where people get most of their podcasts. You can find us on Twitter, @TrekFM. Facebook at facebook.com/TrekFM. There's a listeners-only discussion group where you can talk to listeners from all over the world who listen to Trek FM. It's called the Babel Conference. You can find that on Facebook by typing Babel into the search field. Or if you're on the website at trek.fm, hit discussion on any of the show pages. There's a little button that says discussion, and that will let you in as well. You can send us an email at trek.fm/contact. You choose a show, choose the 602 Club, and that comes to Christy and I. And then last but not least, we really want to say thank you to our associate producers here through Patreon, Ken Tripp, Davis Grayson, Wyatt Millett, and Daniel Noah. They've been supporting the show for a long time, and they make sure that this show and every other show here on the Trek FM network keeps coming to you each and every week. It is a very expensive thing, as you can imagine, most likely, to put together a network of this size with the amount of shows we have coming out. And so Patreon is the way that you can make sure that all of those shows keep coming to you. And we ask you to consider supporting the network so you can keep getting this amazing quality content for free. And any little bit helps, honestly. But we also have some great contribution levels, so you can go over to patreon.com/TrekFM and see how you could become part of our team and make sure that all of the shows here on the network keep coming to you. So, Christy, I was thinking about this as I was kind of thinking about this movie, and I wanted to know, so when this movie came out, one, did you realize that it was connected with Cloverfield? I mean, it's got Cloverfield in the title, but, and was this a movie you were excited about? Did you go see it in the theater? Because to me, I was just like, I can't even remember if I saw this in the theater.
Yeah, I kind of missed this one. When it first came out, it was in 2016. And I don't remember what I was doing. I think, actually, no, that was the beginning of my huge foray more into podcasting with Star Wars and stuff. And, had just met you guys in 2015 at Dragon Con. So I think I was pretty busy and I didn't see it in the theater. But I did think it was possibly connected to Cloverfield just because of the name. And actually just ended up finding out about it later because I don't know if it appeared on my Netflix or somewhere on a streaming service. I saw it maybe to rent and ended up watching it and went, oh, wow, this is incredible. And so then I dug deeper. What about you?
Yeah, so I was thinking about this and I was like, I didn't see this one in the theater, and I was thinking about why, like, what was it? And I think part of it was that I saw the trailer for this movie, and, you know, I'm not really like a horror type person.
Oh, yeah, me neither.
So I think that the trailer for this movie looked a little horrific, and at least the way they portrayed it in the trailer. And so I kind of just stayed away from it because I felt like, oh, this probably isn't going to be my thing. And then, you know, like you, it's something that I ended up watching later because people recommended it and saying, oh, it's not really a horror movie. It's more suspense. Mm-hmm. It's more in kind of like that Hitchcockian type of suspense too. Like, you know, things are building, things are suspenseful, and you don't really know, what's happening, but it's not necessarily like a horror movie. And so I was like, okay, well, I love Hitchcock movies. And so for me, it was really interesting because watching this movie, it kind of reminded me a little bit. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie North by Northwest with Cary Grant.
No.
But there's a movie with him where he wakes up and all of this stuff is happening to him. And he wakes up after almost being killed by being run off the road on purpose. And all of these things keep happening to him because all the shenanigans, and I don't want to give it away because it would ruin the movie, but it kind of reminded me of this movie where it's like all of these things keep happening to a character who's woken up after an accident somewhere, and they're trying to unravel exactly what's happened to them. Mm-hmm. So I think to me, that's what kind of got me in with the movie, and watching it for the first time, I was like, oh, this reminds me of that. And I think, you know, for the most part, I'd say that it's a movie that builds that suspense really well, and it keeps you asking questions. Mm-hmm. And it's also a movie that I don't think, it doesn't leave you hanging in the sense, like, it doesn't not answer the questions that are most important for you to feel satisfied by the end of it. Yeah,
I'd agree with that. And I too, to stem off of what you're saying, the similarity to it to like Hitchcock kind of films, it reminded me as well of maybe, I don't remember who did Kiss the Girls. I think it was a John Grisham book and then became a movie.
Yeah.
But I love that kind of drama, suspense, thriller kind of movie instead of a gory horror movie. So this kind of thing is totally up my alley, and I read a lot of mystery and murder mystery books growing up as well. So this was my kind of thing. But I was worried, like you were, when I saw the description and everything, that it was going to be too horror, but ended up watching it to see. And, you know, it was pleasantly surprised, but I do like that you learn later that it's part of this Cloverfield universe, but it's not directly a sequel, and it's not the exact same story. And I mean, or the same filming style.
And I think that's a great thing to kind of talk about. Like, you know, we're a part of the Cloverfield universe, but we're our own thing. Mm-hmm. And I think you're absolutely right that one of the things that has made this interesting so far in this kind of Cloverfield playground is the fact that each movie feels like it's its own thing, where, you know, like you said, the filming style is different in each movie, but the type of story is also different in each movie. Although there are still some similarities here, like where there is something happening to our main character, Michelle, to which she can't quite put her finger on, like, why all of it's happening. The same kind of thing with our characters in the first movie, like, you know, this alien attack. Why is all this happening? There's not a lot of answers to necessarily the why of everything.
Right.
And so, yeah, I think, and then of course the very end of the movie where we realize, oh, we actually really connected, because they kind of allude to the fact that these attacks actually are happening all over the place.
Yeah, I loved that reveal the first time seeing this movie, that you're thinking at first when you're watching this, okay, so I guess it's just a suspense movie, so why is Cloverfield included in the name? How are they related? I thought this would be sci-fi. Then you're like, oh man, so maybe it is sci-fi, and Howard's trying to tell this girl, Michelle, that there's been an alien attack and you can't go outside because the air is contaminated and everything. And then you get duped again. And it's like, well, he was right, but he is also a murderer. And it's like, oh, great. So my chance for survival is I'm stuck in the ground with a murderer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a good, like, so on the story side of things, how did you feel about the way that they told the story, and especially with, you know, the way the reveals come, in the sense that, you know, it's not that Howard is a liar. Mm-hmm. It's just it's just that just because he's telling the truth about what's going on the outside doesn't necessarily mean he's telling the truth everywhere.
Right. And or that he may not just be like clinically insane. Like that right. He doesn't seem to be a premeditated murderer that just like gets his kicks out of it. It seems like he's deeply disturbed on some level, and like, you know, keeps telling Michelle that this random girl was his daughter, and it turns out he trapped her and killed her too. I don't know. What did you feel? Yeah.
I think the thing that I really appreciated about the movie was the fact that, you know, I feel like this type of movie, in this type of character with Howard, you end up with people like them just being pathological liars, and so everything that they're saying is kind of a lie. Mm-hmm. I mean, it kind of reminds me a little bit of like Split, you know?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
You know, that kind of thing where he's telling them one thing, but he's not really, you know? So, but the fact that he tells the truth a lot of the time makes it more difficult to figure out what the lies are.
Right. And so you're constantly guessing.
Yes. And so, like, that moment in the film, especially the first time you see it, where, you know, she escapes and she gets up to the door and she looks through the window, and that woman is dying in front of her, basically, you know, and going crazy at the same time.
Yeah.
And there's this resignation in her that, oh, Howard is not lying to us. Like, he's telling the truth.
Right.
Yeah, he might be weird, but he's also not actually lying. And so there's this whole thing throughout the movie of you trying to unravel, is he really lying? Is he telling the truth? You know, and they keep planting ideas in your mind to support both throughout the film, which is great, you know, but then the major reveal at the very end that of the story of, no, he actually was telling the truth. There has been a crazy alien attack. And they are, you know, it's not necessarily that they're bombing, but they are laying waste to humanity where they find them. So there is a chance of you know, getting gassed and dying. But at the same time, like you said, he is a liar about the fact of this other girl, and kind of really the main reasons that he has them down there, are not really altruistic. He is deeply disturbed, and most likely a, you know, somebody who relies on Stockholm syndrome for, you know, women to kind of like give him what he wants.
Yeah, but it doesn't come across like he wants to take advantage of her, like physically or anything like that. It seems like maybe he did at some point possibly have a daughter, and for some reason doesn't anymore, because it, you know, now she's the second girl he's had in there. But then it raises all those other creepy questions of, you know, when she climbs up to the attic area where only she can fit to fix the air filter, and sees that "Help Me" is scratched with fingernails on glass. And then you're going, well, why did he kill her?
So I just, story-wise, I kind of thought that the moment that he kills Emmett, that, you know, he shaves and he puts on nicer clothes. So I got the feeling like that he was hoping that this thing would go somewhere.
Oh, maybe. Yeah. I mean, that's a good point, actually. Why would he do that if it was like a father-daughter relationship?
So, yeah, and I think that, you know, I think that's the thing. It's like you keep getting all of these kind of mixed signals throughout the story, you know, about this character. And again, it's like, what is the truth and what's a lie? And it's kind of, it's a really nice thing, I think, in the sense of, story wise, kind of makes me think of that whole thing throughout life in general. Like, we have to sift through the lies and the truth. Mm-hmm. And what is that in life? And finding out what that is not always easy. And so, it really, Michelle in this is a microcosm of that, And so I think the story, and then too in the story, and we haven't even talked about, but like, you have Emmett there to help confirm a lot of things about Howard that he said.
Right.
And, that's another way where it's just like it keeps you guessing the whole time until it finally like kind of lets you know. I mean, the moment he shoots Emmett, you're like, yeah, he's crazy.
Yeah, and I was wondering even if it was going to happen earlier. You can tell for a while when the three of them start spending more time together that Howard clearly does not really like Emmett being there. And Emmett himself said he forced his way in, that they had known each other because he got Emmett to help him build the bunker. But that other than that, they weren't like friends. And so he keeps kind of Howard keeps making the two of them feel like he adores Michelle and wants Emmett to just stop talking and go away. And so I was worried at the dinner table the first time when he's getting his temper riled up that Howard was going to shoot him then.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the ways where I was thinking that, this movie is kind of saying that, Howard wants this to go somewhere with Michelle because...
maybe, yeah.
Again, Emmett's kind of in the way of that happening. And obviously, it's never going to happen if Emmett's around because he's definitely much more desirable than Howard.
Well, and I love that she kind of catches on that maybe Howard is like jealous of the attention Emmett is getting from her and uses that to get the keys from Howard.
Yes. Yep.
But, oh man, makes him mad with that flirtatious moment.
Oh, yeah. And I think the movie does such a good job of trying to neither confirm nor deny the craziness of Howard and just how crazy he is, and if he is really crazy, and where the truth lies in what he's saying, and where the truth lies in the lies.
Yeah.
Like sometimes, because, what's interesting about this is that, Howard is one of those characters who tells like two truths and a lie. Right.
Some of it's always true, but you don't know what else is.
Right. Exactly. So, it's a guessing game throughout the whole movie. And I think it's one of the things that makes it so enjoyable. Even rewatching it, a second time, I was finding myself even more engrossed in the movie than I think I was the first time. And part of that is just like you get the opportunity to start picking up smaller things throughout the film. And so, I think, the story-wise, this movie is really strong. And I think it's one of those movies, too, like, it benefits from them not... the story benefits from them not dragging this out. I mean, it's like an hour and 30-minute movie. So, they don't try to make the movie more than it needs to be. This movie is exactly what it should be.
Yeah, and I like that they, like you're saying, kept it simple. I think that it was very interesting that it really just has these 3 or 4 characters, and that's it, which is not common with a lot of movies. And I like that they have this constant building tension to where finally the climax is Howard pulling out the barrel full of chemical acid and saying, that he could use that to melt a human body, and then gets them to confess, but it ends up being Emmett taking the fall for both of them. And then he just shoots him. And then that he's about to put Emmett into that barrel of acid.
Mm-hmm.
And it just, I mean, that's when you just really start looking at your TV for the first time going, it's all clear to me now. Oh my God.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes. So, talking about the story being concise, I think it behooves us then to kind of like talk about the end, because do you feel like the whole alien aspect is tacked on, or do you feel like it fits the movie well?
I felt like it could have fit a little better, but I think that it was intentional, especially with them, mentioning from the moment she gets, woken up in Howard's bunker that there's been an attack outside and people are dying from the air being poisoned. But I like that they really focus on the primary story being all in the bunker. And that the story is about, like you're saying, that she is trying to figure out what's a lie and what's the truth, and has to figure out what's really going on outside the bunker without ever leaving the bunker, I think is a really great way to tell a story.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I remember the first time being like, oh, okay. And I felt like this is the way where they were trying to kind of really tie it in with, obviously the Cloverfield aspect.
Right.
But I watching it a second time, I liked it more because I felt like, again, it confirms that Howard isn't crazy in some ways.
In some ways.
He's not lying about everything. And so I really appreciated that part. And it was a better way of them having another tension scene than just Howard making it out of the bunker somehow, which, you kind of expect that to be the thing that's going to happen. And then, no, it's not that. It's actually the aliens that he said were there are actually here.
Right.
And you're like, oh, Mother Francis, you thought she was safe because she got outside and everything was okay, but no, there are actually aliens here, and now it's even worse almost than it was in the bunker.
Right.
Out of the frying pan into the fire.
Yeah. But don't you love that she gets that vindication, though, of knowing she blew up the whole bunker, so thankfully Howard's now gone, and she is able to have this suit that she made that actually works to protect her from the poisonous gas, and gets that beautiful moment when the aliens actually try to capture her in his truck, and she throws a Molotov cocktail in its mouth.
Yes. What a waste of good scotch. No, just kidding. That was great. I thought, although she would never have survived that fall from that height.
That was a pretty hard fall.
So that was, yeah. But, I think you're right. I mean, for her as a character and with the story and tying in the aliens and everything, to me, it just works. So,
and she got to take her power back.
Yeah. I mean, and I think, that's definitely a part of this, a character like that who's been captured, you feel bad for the fact that, Emmett doesn't get to live, he basically sacrifices himself trying to help her find a way to live. Basically he, in many ways, he just kind of throws himself in front of the bullet, he angers Howard enough so that she will live. So yeah, the cast, like you mentioned, this cast is really small. And so what did you think of, because really the only characters we have in the movie that matter are Michelle, Howard, and Emmett.
I think that absolutely I did not expect for John Goodman to play the villain. I guess maybe a little because I had seen him in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou as a villain. But he really, this is a testament to the man's acting, which we knew was good before this, but wow, he can play all over the board. I think he's great when you first meet him in this movie as playing the gentle soul that's just trying to help a girl who he found on the road. And then later reveals, well, actually, I did hit you. But, it wasn't on purpose. I just was really trying to get home because there's been an attack, and then I saved you. And then, more things start coming out, and, the whole jealousy he has between watching her with Emmett, and then the ways that sometimes he kind of treats her like his daughter. And then when she tries to escape later after Emmett's dead and he, just completely loses it, he's incredible. I thought he was the best part of this movie.
John Goodman, you're absolutely right. He just shows the range he has, and the fact, he can play really funny people. Mm-hmm. He can play, really goofy people, sarcastic people. But here he plays somebody who is terrifying. Yeah. And I absolutely agree with you. I think he just does such a good job with the character, and I really love that. Because you are you're never completely on his side, right? But there are moments where you feel like, oh, maybe he's just slightly deranged instead of completely deranged, maybe it's not that bad. And then by the end, no, it's full on, delusions of grandeur, basically. Mm-hmm. And he really is an awful person. But I just love the way in which he keeps you kind of guessing the whole time for the most part. Yeah. And I think it's a testament to, like you said, just he really is a fantastic actor. And the fact that by the end you really are truly terrified of this guy is perfect. It's exactly what you want. And then, the way he goes out in a blaze of glory
yeah, right.
is perfect. It's just perfect.
And, I was curious because I've not seen this girl, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, that I can remember in anything else. She's the girl who played Michelle.
Really?
Yeah. I couldn't remember.
No way. Did you, you've seen Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, right?
Oh, parts of it.
Okay,
so maybe
she's
that's
Ramona
why.
Flowers in that. And she, let's see, what else she's in?
She looked familiar, and maybe that's why.
She is on a movie called The Spectacular Now, which I really love. She's also in Live Free, Die Hard. She plays Lucy McLean, his daughter. Let's see, what else? She's about to be in Birds of Prey. She's going to play the Huntress. So,
I love that character.
Yeah, she's been in quite a few things that I've seen her in. But wow, I'm so surprised. That's great. So what did you end up thinking of her then?
I thought that she was every bit the match to John Goodman in this movie. I think that she really makes you feel like you're in her shoes as the viewer. You're watching her experience everything for the first time, waking up, trying to figure out what's going on, what's really the truth, trying to get to know more about Howard and Emmett, and then figure out if she can escape and if anything out there is what Howard says it is. And I think that she really is great with that feeling of powerlessness and then taking her power back later and being, I don't know, I guess I would say she really just is thrilled with being able to take control of her own destiny, I guess I would say.
Yeah.
And especially in the scene where she decides to make a left turn and go back to help other people during the alien attack.
Yeah, I think the thing that she really brings to this movie that I really appreciated was her facial expressions. Especially the moment where you mentioned earlier where she finds she's had to crawl up the ducts, and she gets everything working again, so she kind of breathes a sigh of relief. This is the point in the movie where her and Emmett kind of have experienced a bit of oh, so he really is telling the truth. There has been this attack, and we need to stay here. And then she finds the scratchings on the window of help and the blood stain up there and an earring which matches a picture to which then Emmett says is not his daughter. Mm-hmm. It was not the woman that was actually his daughter, because he knows her. And so I think all of that together the facial expression of her seeing that help is priceless. Like it's worth the price of admission, because there's just this utter terror of her realizing, oh no, this guy is exactly what we thought he was, which is BS crazy.
Yes. Well, and her expression when she thinks that he's making it up about the attack and sees this woman outside and then watches the woman kill herself.
Yes.
Oh, that was terrifying.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, in that scene too, she's just like, she sells it to you completely, like, because after that, she's made the turn of like, kind of, oh, we have to stay here, you know. And her and Emmett seem to be trying to make the best of it. You know, it's not a great place to be, but it is where it is what it is. So we'll stick it out. Yeah, I really enjoy her as an actress a lot. I realized too, she's also in the upcoming movie Gemini Man, which is the one with Will Smith and his clone. Okay. But I like her as an actress a lot. I think she's really good. And I'm interested to I think she'll be great in as Huntress too, so I'm excited for that.
And she does kind of remind me of like Lizzie Kaplan's character, or Lizzie Kaplan as an actress from the first Cloverfield movie.
Yes, yeah.
That just kind of like
100%.
I don't know, dark, broody girl.
Yeah. So John Gallagher is not a character that or not an actor I'm really familiar with. Although I realized that he, when I was looking him up, he'd been in the show Ed, which I loved back in the day with Tom Cavanaugh for just one episode. So I've seen him before. But what did you think of his Emmett?
I thought he was okay. He seemed like at times he could have been a little stronger in the convincing me of how Emmett would feel in different situations. I felt like he seemed a little dry. But I think overall still gets the point across of, you know, he's trapped down there too, but seems like he wanted to be there because he really believes Howard about what's going on outside. And I think he said as a character that he had seen an alien ship attack or something himself and didn't just go by what Howard told him. Did you remember?
I remember him saying that he saw something that he couldn't explain, you know, and it didn't look like anything he'd ever seen on this planet before.
That's right.
And therefore, he was believing then when Howard said it was aliens.
Yeah. And then he said he forced his way in, and that's how he got his arm broken.
Right.
But yeah, it just, I don't know about you, but I felt like he was a little bit, I guess, dry. Like I said, is the best word I've got. That it was just kind of boring sometimes, where he could have been a little bit more animated or convincing and different things in his delivery.
That's really interesting. I wouldn't say that I found him bland or anything like that. I felt like he did what he needed to do in the movie.
Yeah.
But it wasn't as though he... I didn't feel like he shined anywhere in the way that the other two did. And maybe part of that is that the other two are so good in the movie that anybody else just kind of looks like, okay.
Yeah. And his role was very short.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, absolutely. He doesn't have as large a role. And I don't feel like you're supposed to be as quite invested in him as you are with, you know, Michelle and Howard in the end.
Yeah.
Like
he's kind of a
say
pawn.
this, but he's always he's always the expendable character, right?
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, maybe I shouldn't be quite so harsh then. But
no, I mean, but I don't think that's wrong to, I mean, if you just felt like the actor didn't stand out to you in any way,
yeah.
I mean, maybe that's not a bad thing here with this one, but I mean, if the performance didn't speak to you, I mean, that's totally, I mean, I think that's totally valid, you know, so.
So what did you think about the casting of the aliens? They do a good job?
Oh, they were excellent. Really well done. Yeah. Actually, I was going to say, for the most part, I think they did a good job. You know, this is a movie that, you know, didn't have a huge budget, so I think they did a really economical job on what they do with the aliens and everything, so that was great. Now, most surprising thing that I found out about this movie when I looked up was the fact that the voice of her boyfriend on the phone is none other than Bradley Cooper.
That is so weird. And especially that you never see his face or a picture of Ben as a character. It's just, you see at the beginning that she grabs her stuff and leaves, and then Ben's trying to reach her, and you unravel what's going on. Is that basically they were married because she took a ring off and left, and that I guess they got in a fight over something, and then she gets crashed into and taken into the bunker. So it's kind of sad because you wonder what happened that made her want to leave, and then thinking that she's going to die and not have been able to sort things out with Ben. But, then, even thinking about, is my family okay? Is Ben possibly okay from the attack? So, he serves a good purpose, even though we don't ever see him, but I kind of wish that he had been involved more in some way.
Yeah, it was interesting. This movie is again, we talked about the fact that it's very economical in what it does, and so the fact that he never shows up again is interesting. And you don't really know. From their conversation when he's talking on the phone, you don't know what kind of fight it was. You kind of are wondering, how bad this fight was. Was it something that's really bad, or is it true what he's saying, where it's just like everybody has these type of fights, So. But yeah, you are kind of left wondering if he's dead or alive with the end of the movie. So yeah, and then crazy that they got Bradley Cooper to do the recording there, because it's like what, maybe a minute of dialogue, maybe. So
maybe that's all they could pay him for. No physical appearance, just that.
Yeah, we just really like your voice, Bradley.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you too before we kind of wrap up, because I think the movie leaves you with her going towards Houston. So and I know that the Cloverfield paradox, which we'll cover, doesn't involve obviously her. But didn't this kind of make you want to see more of her story?
It did. I really now want to go see her fight more aliens and be awesome, because clearly she's decided, instead of going to check on her family and things like that, which you would think naturally you'd want to do, she's like, you know what? No, screw these aliens. I'm going to help these other people that say they're over here toward the coast, and try to take back Earth. And I'm just like, she's like a superhero to me now. I would love to see Michelle versus the aliens.
Yeah. I'm right there with you. I feel like this, not every movie needs a sequel, but it did create a character that I really enjoyed, and I felt like, it would have been interesting for maybe the next Cloverfield thing to involve her, but again, in a completely different type of story and all. So, but at the same time, it's kind of neat to, we just... Obviously, this isn't really a sequel to the Cloverfield. They call it kind of like a spiritual successor. And so the fact that they're only loosely connected is great. But it is kind of nice to be able to get a movie that doesn't have to be like that kind of franchise, So me saying I would like to see more also doesn't discount the fact that it's kind of wonderful to be able to pop in a modern movie that I don't have to watch 12 other movies. You don't even have to have seen the other Cloverfield movie for this movie to make sense or enjoy watching. So
I think that's the biggest asset of all of the Cloverfield stuff, is that each one can stand on its own just fine, and you don't have to see all of the others to understand what's happening in any of them. So I hope they continue to make more of them. And clearly J.J. Abrams being involved, I think, has been a good thing. And I like that each one is so different in the storytelling as well as the filming style, and that they're left open-ended. At least these two have been so far. So, yeah, I definitely hope we get to see more of them.
Yeah, 100%. So what do you rate this one, Christy? Because it sounds like this is one that you were a big fan of.
Yeah, I don't want to be just throwing out hugely high rankings all the time just because, but I do think that this one totally deserves a 9 out of 10 buckets of acid. because it grips you. I mean, especially from the moment that the truck hits her, you never see that coming the first time you've seen this movie. And it just, especially if you've ever been in a car accident as well, it's a jarring experience to then see on screen. So I think that it's incredible storytelling in a very budget-friendly package that just happens to be really rewatchable as well. So I give it a 9 out of 10 for me.
I'm right there with you. I honestly, so I rewatched the movie, and then I went, as I always do, to Letterboxd to log the film. And the first time that I'd seen this movie, I gave it 3 out of 5. And I feel like this movie has actually moved up for me. It's a 4 out of 5. I'm right there with you. I think that the suspense of the film is great. I think it's a really well-executed film, and the acting is wonderful. And like we kind of mentioned, it's a movie that's exactly what it needs to be, and it's as long as it needs to be, and it's I enjoy those type of films. Like, lots of times you can kind of like say, "Oh man, the movie was great," but they cut out 10 minutes,
right? Like,
but
don't
this
drag
is
it
not
on.
one of those films. Yeah. So, I mean, this movie moved up for me 4 out of 5. Alien attacks, alien gassings, which is kind of weird, Nothing worse than running into alien gas. So. Yeah. But it's time for recommendations. And so this week, Christy, I am wondering what you were going to be recommending.
That's a good question. Maybe you go first and I'll think about mine.
Okay.
I have a lot.
So, now the 602 Club schedule has already been filled for the fall. We got so much coming out that we're going to be doing. And so something that started on Netflix that we'll be covering at the beginning of the year, because we just don't have time now, and it gives time to people to watch it. You don't have to feel like you have to watch it all now. But I started The Dark Crystal, Age of Resistance, and it's been wonderful. The original movie, we'll talk about that too then, but it's so wonderful to see something that's been put together with so much care and love. Mm-hmm. Because, this is all a puppeted universe. So the work, the craftsmanship is just impeccable. It's just... I'm really loving it, and the storyline has been really interesting so far, and it's just really great to be in that kind of cared for universe where people they're putting blood, sweat, and tears into it. So I'm really enjoying it. I've finished through episode 3 so far, and it's a 10-episode season, but it's so far just as puppetry goes, Jim Henson's group has put this together, and it's phenomenal. So, the masters behind, making a character like Yoda to the screen, the work that they've done beforehand, and so many movies like the Muppet movies of old and stuff like that, it's just great. It's gorgeous. And I just think I'm really excited to continue to watch it. So, so far, I would call it a recommend. So,
okay.
Yeah. So, were you able to think of something that you wanted to recommend to everybody?
Yeah. So, sorry, I've had a lot of them, so I've had to kind of try to narrow it down. But I would say my one for right now would be, I don't know about people's like of watching really movies that are so bad that they're hilarious, but that's kind of my niche thing that I love that I don't always get to talk about. And I got to talk about it with someone at DragonCon this weekend. So I'm going to tell you, I recommend watching the Attack of the Killer Tomatoes and Return of the Killer Tomatoes, because it's goofy sci-fi that came out when George Clooney was a young man. He's in Return of the Killer Tomatoes.
Nice.
And it just, these moments, especially with the dialogue, that you just absolutely crack up laughing out loud. They're a little bit crass sometimes with the humor, so it's not for kids. But I highly recommend it. Basically about when tomatoes come to life and attack your town, what do you do?
That's awesome.
So, like I said, it's horrible, but it's so bad, it's funny.
Well, and sometimes you just need that kind of craziness. So, yeah. Well, I'm excited for what we got coming up the rest of the year here with the 602 Club. As I mentioned, we got a jam-packed schedule for you guys, and we can't wait to get to it. But Christy, if anybody wants to talk to you about Cloverfield Lane or anything else, maybe recommendations, more recommendations for So Bad It's Good movies, where can they find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Bespin Bell. And you can also talk to me, of course, in the Babel Conference about the 602 Club, and then other things we're covering. And if you want to listen to some other shows I'm on, I actually, other than the 602 Club every week, I'm on every other week a show called Sabers and Spells with my friend Teresa Delgado as we dive through Star Wars or Umbrella Academy or Stranger Things, lots of geeky things we love. And then once a month, I do a show with 5 other women around the world called Planet Leia on the Fantha Tracks Network. We just released our 2nd episode, and on the 3rd one will be my interview I did during DragonCon with Annalise Ophelian of the Looking for Leia documentary. So you'll want to hear that for sure. And then finally, once a month as well, I do a 5-minute segment on my friend's show, The Star Wars Report, where I talk about fashion in 5, which is men's and women's Star Wars fashion in 5 minutes.
Well, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, and Vero under the name MattRushing02. I am here on the network. When we get a chance, Chris Jones and I talk about Star Trek Deep Space Nine over on the Orb. I'm on the Nerd Party Network. I do 2 shows over there. One is called Owlpost with Drea Kaufman, and that's where we talk about Harry Potter, 1 chapter at a time. In fact, we only have 1 chapter left of Order of the Phoenix, so really excited about that. I'm doing Aggressive Negotiations with John Mills. We talk about Star Wars each and every week. Had a blast talking about the idea of Dark Ray. So check that out. And then you can find me over on Cinema Stories doing films through the lens of faith with my good friend Courtney. But thank you so much for joining us.
And y'all come back now, you hear?